Inside our homes, we complain about the cold. The heater hums, the lights glow soft, and still we shiver. Outside, the frost climbs the walls like a living thing, patient and pale. But long before comfort, they faced a winter that didn't forgive. No blankets thick enough, no walls high enough, only earth frozen heavy and waiting. So they didn't fight the cold. They listened to it. They went beneath it. Under the snow, under the wind, they built warmth from soil and silence. A home the storm could not touch. A fire the wind could not find. The snow kept falling slow, endless, without mercy. The sky had taken everything trees, warmth, horizon. All that remained was earth. And in that emptiness, they found the answer. Not above the storm, but beneath it. Because when the wind owns the world, the wise go where the wind cannot follow. Out on the Great Plains, the wind never rested. It crawled low across the grass patient, as hunger endless as time. Every winter, it stripped the world bare. No trees, no shelter, no mercy. The people learned early, you can't fight a sky. You can't block the wind. So, they did what no storm expected. They moved beneath it, down, into the earth. They watched the snow's memory where it drifted deepest, where it melted last. They read the land like a map of silence, the bends of grass, the folds of clay, the whisper of still air. And in those quiet hollows they began to dig, not caves, but homes, half under half above, carved from clay wood and patience. The Mandan, the Pawnee, the Hidatsa, each tribe had their pattern, but all followed one truth: warmth hides below. They dug wide circular pits, lined the walls with willow reeds and packed earth, then raised roofs of logs and sod until the storm became their ceiling. No wall stood taller than the horizon. No smoke betrayed their fire. Inside, the air stayed calm, a silence that breathed instead of stealing breath. The ground absorbed heat from the fire, then gave it back through the night like a quiet promise. Even at 30 below, the floor stayed warm to the touch. They didn't call it architecture. They called it sense, the kind born of watching the land for generations. To them, the earth wasn't an obstacle. It was a partner. And in that partnership, they found what every winter tried to take away: peace, warmth, and time. The deeper they dug, the warmer it became. Not from fire, but from the earth itself. Down where the frost couldn't bite, the ground stayed alive. They learned to use what the land already offered: a constant, steady warmth buried beneath the cold. Even when the wind above screamed, the soil below whispered heat. They built their walls, thick layers of clay, willow, and sod pressed tight. Every inch mattered. 50, sometimes 60 centimeters of packed earth sealed the storm out. And in that weight, warmth was trapped, patient and quiet. The fire inside didn't need to roar. It only needed to breathe. The heat moved through the walls slowly, so slowly, it never escaped, only circled back. At night, when the fire dimmed, the ground returned what it had stored during the day. A quiet cycle of giving and keeping, the first natural insulation system of the plains. Archaeologists found the proof in old Mandan sites, floors 6 degrees warmer than the frozen air outside, even after the embers had gone dark. It wasn't magic. It was design the kind you don't draw, you inherit. They didn't wrap themselves in blankets. They wrapped themselves in the earth. And in that embrace, the storm lost its voice. Inside those earthen homes, fire was the heartbeat. But if it burned too strong, it killed. If it burned too weak, it froze. So they learned to make it breathe. At the center of every lodge, they dug a shallow pit, not deep, not wide, just enough to cradle flame. Above it, a small hole opened through the roof, a scar in the earth that let smoke escape to the sky. But smoke alone was not the problem. Air was. Without breath, the fire would choke itself. So they built another tunnel, dug low from the outside, a narrow passage leading underground straight to the hearth. Cold air slid in through the tunnel's mouth, fed the flame from below, and pushed the smoke up through the roof like a living lung. The wind above drew the fire below, answered a perfect rhythm between earth and air. They didn't know the word ventilation. They just knew how the world moved. Every breath of fire was matched by a breath of wind. It was balance, not invention. Archaeologists tested this design in the 1970s and found the airflow flawless, a 2-level draft system that burned cleaner than modern stoves. Proof that survival wasn't luck. It was engineering written in dirt. When you stood inside, you could hear it, a low hum under the crackle, the sound of the earth exhaling. Inside those lodges, everything began with a circle. The fire in the center, the people around it, the roof above, all turning in one breath. There were no corners because corners trapped cold. They built round because warmth moves like water, slow, even endless. In the curve, heat travels. In the curve, air lives. The floor was always lower than the doorway, a simple trick that made every breath of heat stay low and steady. Cold air slipped in, sank by the door, while warm air rose in quiet spirals above sleeping forms. Each body became part of the system, breathing, warming, giving back. Children near the center, elders at the edge, listening to the fire's rhythm through the soil. No one was separate. They slept in circles, lived in circles, thought in circles. From above, the house looked like the sun, a glowing center, a living ring. It wasn't decoration, it was understanding, because the circle never wasted warmth. It shared it. Each breath fed another. Each life held the next. Modern builders call it efficiency. They called it balance. And when dawn came and smoke drifted through the roof hole, it looked like the earth itself was exhaling life. When the fire faded, the body became the last furnace, skin against wind, breath against frost. Every inch mattered, every pore, every heartbeat, every drop of oil on the skin. The people learned early, when wood runs out, wisdom begins. They built armor not from metal or cloth, but from life itself. Before leaving the lodge, hunters rubbed their bodies with fat buffalo tallow bear grease or seal oil. Where the cold was cruelest, they warmed it in their palms first, then spread it slowly until the skin gleamed under the dim light of the fire. It wasn't ritual, it was reason. The fat sealed the pores, slowed the loss of heat, and turned skin into a living coat, flexible, silent, alive. It kept the body breathing without freezing, and the cold could no longer bite as deep. Over that, they dusted fine ash, gray-dry, thin as smoke. The mixture darkened the skin, but more than that, it broke the wind. Ash scattered scent, absorbed sweat, deflected light and moisture all at once. Together, the two, fat and ash, made a second skin the cold couldn't pierce. On the Great Plains, elders told stories of hunters who faced blizzards bare to the waist, their bodies shining like stone, black with ash, and oil untouched by frostbite, while the world around them turned white. Modern science proved what they already knew. Animal fat slows heat loss and ash blocks evaporation, keeping warmth trapped longer than fur or fabric alone. They called it the second hide, a layer of respect between man and winter, and when the fire was gone, that respect kept breathing. But even the strongest skin could only hold so much warmth. Beyond the body, there was another fire, one that burned between people. When the storm grew louder, they drew closer, and in that closeness, they built their truest shelter, each other. When night fell, the world outside froze solid. Inside warmth had to come from more than fire. It came from people. They understood something we've forgotten. Heat is a circle, not a line. So they slept in geometry, a design older than comfort, older than walls. At the center of the fire, around it, a ring of bodies. Children closest to the flame, light sleepers, small lungs, fast warmth. Women and elders behind them, then the men facing outward their backs, forming the shield that caught the cold. No blanket was wasted, no breath went alone. Each inhale drew heat, each exhale gave it back. Through the night, the circle breathed a quiet rhythm of survival heartbeats and fire mixing in the dark. Even when the embers dimmed, the human furnace held. Some tribes like the Mandan and Hidatsa built sleeping platforms of packed earth or hide mats raised slightly from the floor so the warm air pooled beneath and returned upward. It wasn't luxury, it was logic. They called it the geometry of family, a living structure that used love as insulation. Because on those nights, the difference between warmth and death wasn't strength, it was closeness. When the night deepened, the world went still. But stillness did not mean safety. The storm hid more than cold, it hid footsteps. Every family had its watch. Not loud, not seen, only felt. At the edge of the lodge, snow was piled high, not just for warmth, but for silence. A thick barrier that muffled sound and caught the scent of strangers. Dogs lay near the entrance, their ears tuned to what eyes could not see. They didn't bark unless they had to. A low growl was enough to wake the men, and a breath later, the camp was ready. Weapons rested near the door bows. Strung spears stacked their tips warm to keep them from cracking in the frost. Every move was quiet, every defense invisible. They didn't build walls to keep enemies out. They built awareness to let nothing pass unnoticed. The snow told them stories, fresh prints, changed patterns, the difference between the wind's path and a man's. To survive the night, you didn't need noise. You needed listening. The Lakota called it the winter's ear, a way of hearing danger through the cold. And when dawn finally broke, nothing had moved except the wind. The defense had worked not by shouting, but by understanding. In the end, survival was never about muscle, it was about memory. They didn't fight the winter, they learned to live inside it. Every fire was placed by logic, every wall built with breath, every night measured by heartbeat, not by fear. They carried no maps, no tools of science, only observation, patience, and trust in the land. And that knowledge weighed nothing yet. It carried them through centuries of ice. The Mandan, the Pawnee, the Lakota, each tribe wrote their own version of warmth, not on paper, but in practice. Every lodge was a lesson, every ember a teacher. They knew that warmth isn't something you build, it's something you share. A cycle of fire, air, body, family, silence, each one feeding the next until the cold gives up. Modern people measure comfort in degrees. They measured it in distance, how close you sat to the flame, how near you slept to another heartbeat. The wisdom that saved them couldn't be held, traded, or bought. It was felt in soil, in skin, in silence. The kind of wisdom that weighs nothing but keeps everything alive. The lodge is quiet now. Only embers breathe slow, red patient. The smoke curls upward, searching for the night. Outside, the wind moves again, but it doesn't sound like an enemy anymore. It sounds like memory. In the dim light, you can still see the circle, the place where fire lived, and people learned to outlast the cold without defying it. Every warmth they made was borrowed from earth, from breath, from each other. And when the fire faded, what remained wasn't heat. It was knowledge. A blueprint written in silence and soil. They never conquered winter, they befriended it. And in that friendship, they found peace. Because survival isn't about fighting nature, it's about listening long enough to understand it. So when your own fire begins to dim, remember theirs. The warmth may fade, but the wisdom stays. Stay by the fire.